I want to offer you a way to really reduce your complaining. I, let me start by saying I know I talk about complaining a lot, and it could be an ironic thing. Seems like I'm complaining about complaining. I'm not. My intentions are to be helpful. It is a common complaint that we make as people that I complain too much. Not Damon, but we observe in ourselves, I'm always complaining. Or people will say, you're always complaining. I know, I just can't stop. And we sort of know that complaining isn't isn't really helpful. We find all kinds of excuses about surfacing concerns that are easily torn down as arguments with a little bit of effort. And so we sort of know that complaining isn't really doing what we want it to do. So we seek out ways to reduce or stop our complaining. I offer this to you not as advice, but what I have noticed and experienced in my own life to be successful. And I've tried a few things that were not successful that I'll share with you. But I want to start with a little bit of context. A lot of these discoveries have come from living abroad. My wife and I left the United States, lived in Costa Rica for a few years. We've lived in Mexico for a little longer than that. And so it's been about a decade in international communities where we've been exposed to many different populations. And the short answer to the question I haven't asked is I've observed a connection between two aspects of people's lives. It's not seamless, but it's pretty predictable that the higher one's affluence, the greater one's experience, and to that extent, suffering from complaining. This is the conclusion that I've come to. Affluence breeds discontentment. Easy access to that which we desire and the ability to push away that which we don't desire builds a kind of intolerance when we encounter places where we're not able to get what we want with some kind of immediacy. So I won't spend much more time on that, but just to put that claim down as the observation that I've had. This is what I've found has had little to no effect on my own experience with complaining. I once tried the armband challenge, where I was to move a little wristband from one wrist to the other anytime I complained, or anytime I noticed somebody else complaining and verbalized that noticing. And what I found after several months is that I could not get through even a single day without moving that wristband. I did find that I grew way more conscious of how much I was actually complaining all the time, in so much as I also realized that I wasn't catching every time that I had been complaining, or I would remember, oh gosh, that was a complaint 5 minutes ago. How many times have I been complaining and I didn't even notice it? And what is the meaning of all this? So I've not found that useful. Others might have a different experience. Gratitude lists are super valuable for a lot of reasons, none of which include connecting my life to decrease in complaining. And then the other one is just kind of white knuckling it, like wheeling myself to stop complaining has been a complete fail. Just trying to just stop it. It's really hard, arguably impossible, to start stopping something. So those are three that I've not found useful. But here are three that I have found useful, and you may do with them as you will. The first one is to give it away, your stuff and your income. Now, obviously, this is a contextual offering. If one is struggling financially, giving away one's income wouldn't be prudent. And if there are things in one's life that you find you need or want, certainly don't get rid of those. But what my wife and I found when we left the country is that about 90% of what we had wasn't actually actively part of our lives. It was decorative or simply ensuring that our home would burn faster because it was piles of papers and boxes in a closet that were long forgotten about. There is a lot in most of our lives that can either be taken straight to the bin, donated, given away, sold in a rummage sale, left on a corner for somebody else to take. And then the income part is that just having less won't stop us from simply going and buying more on Amazon or wherever we like to shop. This is what we learned. When we arrived in Costa Rica with just I think it was about 3 bags, 50-pound bags each, and our dog, we lived very lean. Our means were slim, our possessions were slimmer, and it was quite a change from the life we'd had before. But what we found was we had less to complain about because we wanted and needed less. And experiences like buying a pair of flip-flops were quite a pleasurable experience. Cheap, plastic, non-eco-friendly flip-flops was a joyous day in a way that I actually can't quite connect to these days because my life has become more abundant. But I can tell you that it will never get as abundant as it once was. So number 1, give it away, as much of it as you can. Have less that you need and want. With your income, if you can automate it, then you don't have to think about it all the time. Okay, 2, start noticing your arising desires. There are 2 types of desire that arise. There is the desire to have, and then there is the desire to not have. So as objects arise in our perception, smells, sights, tastes, thoughts, a lot of thoughts, feelings, judgments, we apply a lens of I like it, I don't like it. And some of those we feel really strongly to the point that we start to obsess over them. I get a sweet craving at night that is, oof. I find it very useful to sit with that craving and notice it and do nothing about it. That's number 3. Start trying to just live with those rising desires. Resist the urge to satiate them. I mean, look, if something's on fire or somebody's bleeding, that falls into a different category. There are emergencies that need to be handled. But most of the things we feel we just absolutely must have in this given moment, or everything's going to come to a crash. Nope. So give it away. Notice your arising desires and see how long you can sit with those strong urges. See what that does for your complaining.